Kevin Hincks is with me, co-host of Fast Market, live at the CBOE. We saw some record closes. People like that for their 401k and IRA. What are your thoughts this morning? Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Nicole. You know, today, to start the day, as we inch closer to Tesla and Google Alphabet's earnings, we're getting some earnings. We got a lot of defense stocks this morning. We got Coke, like you mentioned. But really, what seems to be taking over the morning conversation is Jerome Powell speaking at a banking conference. Here's the official name, the Integrated Review of the Capital Framework for Large Banks Conference in Washington, D.C. He started talking about 8:30 New York time, and he is staying away from policy comments. He made comments like they need large banks to be free to compete with one another. So this conference is more about bank regulation and red tape. So he seems to be staying on topic there, but there's comments swirling all over the place about Jerome Powell this morning and Fed independence and should he resign, should he be relieved. Scott Bessent coming out, always the calm voice from the Trump administration, said there's no need for Jerome Powell to step down right now. And so not like Mohamed El-Erian, who's saying he should resign. So there's lots of commentary on a slow news day about the Fed. Also, Michelle Bowman speaks at 1 p.m. Eastern time at the same conference as Jerome Powell. So as we get earnings coming out, stocks are moving in individual names. You mentioned the futures. They are basically unchanged in a mixed version. The one thing everyone should realize is the NASDAQ, from an RSI perspective, is now 71 and 72 overbought. The S&P is right sitting at 69 and 68 based on the stocks in the future. So they're very close to overbought territory. This is a market that is not cheap, but we're moving into large cap tech earnings, and that should be quite interesting, Nicole.
Okay, I mean, you mentioned some of the earnings. I mean, we're going to be going through them, but Coca-Cola had a beat. General Motors gave us some good news. What about the tariff headlines? We still have August 1st marked on our calendars, but we know that Scott Bessent said we're looking for quality and less about the timing, particularly when it came to the EU. Any headlines grabbing your attention?
Yeah, Scott Bessent speaking this morning, making some comments. He said a couple things. We should see some deals in the next couple days. Boy, he says that a lot, and I think I speak for the market when I say let's get them out and get that pace moving. He also talked about China, and he said the key for negotiations between the U.S. and China is for China to open up to U.S. trade. And so even though they send a ton of goods and services our way, we don't. Their markets aren't open to U.S. companies, barely. So that's what his goal is for China. But he also said he expects some deals to be announced in the next couple of days. Remember, we inch closer to a July 29th and 30th Fed meeting, and then an August 1st deadline on the tariffs. And you're right, he did mention it's not important the date, that they get them done by the date, but the quality of the deals that they're getting. So does that mean that they're thinking about extending some? It may have to do with how well the negotiations are going. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of, for a quiet market that seems to be kind of a lazy summer rally. We've seen a lot of them in my career. There's certainly a lot of headlines going on right now and a lot of dates coming up on the future that could move markets, Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, pretty impressive that we saw the record closes for the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500. When you take a look at earnings, you mentioned a few of the names that we're watching. Anything grabbing your attention there for this week ahead?
Texas Instruments today after the bell. That is an old legacy semiconductor company. That's always an interesting one. GE Vernova, the energy arm of GE, coming up tomorrow morning before the bell. And then obviously the big news event of this week is Tesla and Google Alphabet coming out after the bell tomorrow. And again, in terms of economic data, durable goods on Friday should be a fairly big number. Remember, that's one of my top 6 data point for the month. So watch for a little volatility because of aircraft orders down. So big swing from up in durable goods to down, should be about 11% drop in durable goods orders for the headline, Nicole.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I feel like I had one guest who said the tariffs were really the old story, and now we're on to the AI revolution, the revitalization of manufacturing. Seemed less interested in the tariff story for the big picture, and many of our guests still have year-end targets that are higher than the current levels. Are you getting any big picture thoughts on the direction of this market?
Well, in terms of tariffs, when all the tariff news hit in April, the markets got very uncomfortable. But in my trading career, I've noticed markets get uncomfortable, and then over time they get less uncomfortable. And I think that's what you're seeing play out. They're getting used to the tariff talk. The headlines coming out on tariffs aren't moving the markets as much as they did, early in the Trump administration. So I think you're right, Nicole. I think the market is moving on to bigger things. And that's, I think, earnings, where the market sits, just where, one of the big topics going to be this quarter for earnings is it's a different story between do you beat on earnings and does your stock go up or down? You're seeing a lot of names beat on earnings, but the stock not going up. Why? Because look at the V recovery that you've seen in stocks, and none of these stocks are necessarily that cheap anymore. They've all rallied. The market's sitting at or near all-time highs every day. So the market's not cheap, Nicole. So the bar is going to be set pretty high for this earnings season. Even though they're doing well, doesn't always mean the stock goes up.
Yeah, understood. All right. Kevin Hincks there at the CBOE live every day for us here on Schwab Network. So glad you're here. Thank you, Kevin.